Vegetables. Tea. Grains. Fish. People are buying the things they need to survive from people who need to sell them in order to make money to meet needs of their own. This is one of the fundamental principles of economics that will help us understand how to study a culture. What is a culture? Most anthropologists agree that a human culture is learned behavior acquired by individuals as members of a social group. There are several universal elements which need to be examined in order to understand and define a culture. They include economic activities, geography and natural resources, social organizations, and beliefs and values. Members of a culture share certain beliefs, morals, customs, traditional practices, and a common language. The sum of the elements that unite a group of people is collectively referred to as a culture. A culture is a total way of life. This lesson will examine how a culture is defined by the ways in which people meet their needs and wants through various economic activities. Each person must find a way to provide for his or her subsistent needs. Subsistent needs include a person's basic requirement of food, water, shelter, and clothing. Subsistent needs are necessary for basic survival. Whether producing on a small scale for individual consumption or a large scale for mass production, each person must meet his or her subsistent needs before trying to obtain his or her personal wants. Things such as artwork, television sets, jewelry, or stereo systems. Members of a culture meet their needs through the production of goods. There are three types of production in most cultures: service, industry, and agriculture. Service production includes physical or intellectual activities or tasks which are performed for others, such as cooking and selling food, or working as a bus driver, police officer, teacher, or grocery store cashier. Industrial production includes the actual manufacture of goods from various resources. A good example in many cultures is the production of automobiles. There are, however, many types of industrial production, including products ranging from beer to pancake syrup. Agricultural production is the cultivation of crops and livestock for food and related products such as clothing. Farmers grow vegetables and grains, or produce meat, butter, and milk from animals. In some cultures, these items are sold directly to wholesalers, while in others, They may be taken directly to a local marketplace. The economic activities of a culture are determined by three factors: topography, climate, and natural resources of the land. Topography is the physical features of the land. Topography determines the economic activities of a culture because the physical features of the land influence how it can be used in production by the people who live there. If an area is mountainous, people may raise animals that are adapted to climbing. People who live in flat areas with fertile soil are likely to choose agriculture as one of their primary economic activities. People who live in areas surrounded by water often focus on economic activities such as fishing. Climate is the average temperature and precipitation of a region. Climate determines economic activities because the weather influences which activities can be performed. For example, crops that grow in one type of climate may not grow in another. People who live in very warm, dry climates involve themselves in very different economic activities than people who live in cold, wet climates. Natural resources are materials provided by nature and used in production, such as timber, water, soil, minerals, and animals. The natural resources of a region determine what materials are available for economic production. In a forested region, people might be employed in the timber industry, from cutting or replanting trees to working in sawmills, or even producing the tools necessary to operate the mill. Other individuals or businesses purchase the raw lumber to produce goods, such as handcrafted wooden toys. Once production is completed, these products might be sold locally in small shops or exported to other retailers around the world. Because natural resources are unevenly distributed over the earth, people from different cultures have found it necessary to interact with each other in the exchange of resources, both importing from and exporting to other cultures. To help provide for themselves and others more efficiently, cultures develop technology. Technology consists of tools, machines, materials, plans, and procedures that aid in the production of goods and services. A technology may be rather basic, such as a rug created by hand. Or complicated, such as an automated weaving machine. Regardless of its sophistication, technology usually evolves from people's need to increase production. Today, India is one of the most densely populated countries in the world, with nearly 900 million people living in a landmass roughly half the size of the continental United States. Many of India's economic activities are devoted to meeting the subsistent needs of their own population. Utilizing India's vast land and water resources, the people use rivers to irrigate more than 40% of the arable land. Although simple by some standards, advancements in methods of irrigation are a result of technological development. These irrigation systems increase the production of crops, which feeds more people. Technology, such as a sewing machine, may increase individual productivity. Advanced technology, such as a hydroelectric dam, can increase group productivity. In this case, water power is harnessed and used for a large region and group of people. The development of technology may depend on a culture's access to materials and information. For that reason, technological differences exist among many of the Earth's cultures. For example, Denmark is a country famous for its pastries and baked goods. Danes and tourists alike purchase many baked goods every day. As a result of the materials and information available to them, the Danes have equipped their bakeries with advanced technology for the maximum output of goods. By contrast, many in Egypt still rely on wood-fired ovens for baking bread. The output of wood-fired ovens is not as high as the high-tech mixers and ovens used in Denmark. Some cultures are highly industrialized, with economic activity centered around large areas of production, such as factories. Other cultures may rely heavily on cottage industry, in which production is performed on a smaller scale, such as in one's home. Some cottage industry production is still performed without advanced technology. These Swedish glassblowers are skilled craftsmen who produce beautiful pieces by hand. Made in limited supply, they're sold for a greater price because of their handmade artistry. No person can possibly produce everything he or she needs or wants. For that reason, cultures develop economic systems to organize the exchange of goods and services among people. Barter, the simple trade of one item for another, is one form of economic exchange. For example, someone growing vegetables may trade with someone producing meat. Each person is using his or her available resources to obtain what he or she needs. As cultures develop more complicated systems of production through industrialization, they need to develop more sophisticated economic systems of exchange. In most cultures, currency has replaced the barter of goods. A monetary system facilitates the exchange of goods. When people are paid money for their work, they can then spend the money they've earned on meeting their subsistent needs or wants. Along with the development of currency came the need for regulation. Regulation can vary within different cultures. A free market economy is one concept used to organize economic activities. A free market economy is consumer-driven and ruled by competition. It's not controlled by one person, organization, or institution. In a free market economy, companies must decide how much to produce each year. A company must construct a budget and determine its manufacturing costs, such as the price of raw materials, how much to pay assembly line laborers and management, and the costs of production equipment. Once a company knows the costs of manufacturing, it can then determine how much money to charge for the product. The price needs to be competitive, cover the costs of production, and allow the company to make a profit. A command economy is another example of an economic concept used to regulate economic activities. In a command economy, the government owns all significant enterprises and closely regulates all economic activities. In a command economy, the government typically controls the majority of wealth, dictates the rights of individual workers, and manages all elements of production. In most economies, it's more likely that the distribution of wealth will be skewed toward the people who control the means of production, who own the natural resources, or whose services are in the greatest demand. Therefore, the distribution of wealth is likely to be uneven throughout the culture. There are many economic factors to consider when studying a culture. To recap, it's important to observe how topography, climate, and natural resources influence the economic activities people perform. Remember that members of a culture meet their needs through the production of goods and services. There are 3 types of production in most cultures: service, industry, and agriculture. Understanding these economic factors will help greatly in learning how to study the various cultures of the world.